HDR, MAXFALL, MAXCLL. So, I'll leave you to describe this, Steve, because these are your slides. I can take no credit for what's about to happen.
Yeah, so the unique thing is, going through the material, and you have the max content light level, and then you have the max frame light level. And what the difference is, one is over the entire series of materials, and one is looking at the exact frame that you're sitting on. And did the frame exceed your grade level? So in PQ, you're not going to grade this thing at 10,000 nits, because there's not a monitor in the world that can put out 10,000 nits. So you're typically going to grade this thing for 1,000 nits for home delivery. You're going to grade it for probably 4,000 nits for master content. And did the material stay within that limit that you have set and is not going above that? So you can look at the max content light level and make sure that it doesn't go over, let's say in this case, 1,000 nits. And you can run the whole clip and make sure that it's not going over that. And then if it does, you can go back to the timeline, run this thing out, be looking at it on your scope, and find the frame that actually goes over. And I think this is one that you had unique things with that customer.
It is. Let me just go to the slide in question. So, yeah, we had a customer. His HDR project had been rejected. And he was showing me that on the software tools he was using, it said it was quite happy. It hadn't exceeded 1,000 nits. Yet as soon as we put the leader scope on there, we were getting, in this case, a 1,300 nit pixel. And by using the Cinelight tools, which is the kind of built-in marker that you can position on a picture, and it will then display where it sits on the waveform, vector, and CIE color chart, we were able to identify the area of the picture. And as you can see here, it quite clearly shows that it has exceeded, 1,000 nits. Now, we alluded to this earlier on. So this is a UHD project. So 1 hour of UHD content is probably going to be around about 60 to 70 terabytes. And as most broadcasters now have on-demand catch-up services, when they drop the first episode, the whole season is available to view as a binge for those, who just can't wait for that weekly episodic drop, which now means gone are the good old days where you might still be editing program number 5 or 6 in that season when the first one's aired. You've got to drop the whole lot. So if there's 6 or 7 of those, and they're 60 to 70 terabytes a piece, do you have that size grading storage that you can have a project sitting on while you're waiting for it to be QC'd by a third party? Most people will have started archiving, and we all live in a world where as soon as you take content off of your grading storage, you can guarantee that somebody is going to replace it with the next project. So if you then have to bring that back in, the analogy I was told, it's like trying to put water into a bucket that's full. It's underneath the faucet, that's turned on full, so it's filling up, but you're trying to put water in through a hole in the bottom.
Yes. So your transfer speed is that hole in the bottom, that the bucket is your entire multi-terabyte file. And pulling it out of long-term storage and putting it into active online storage, grading storage, is that drip out of the bottom of the bucket.
Exactly. And, you know, the number of times I've sat, we all understand the position post-production houses are in. We know it is an extremely difficult time out there. There's basically been a number of factors that are influenced, and we're still in the shadow of some of those factors.
Oh, we are.
But
Definitely.
not having a dedicated piece of test and measurement that can do these sort of things within your facility, it is a false economy. It's going to bite you, and it's going to cost more than that waveform monitor that you turned around to me and said was too expensive.
And that's one of the things you need to think about, is not just the raw cost of that waveform monitor, and you need to be able to present a case to management that this is actually the total cost of what it's going to cost me if we have just one piece of material that goes out and comes back. What is that cost? And like I said, you do that 2 times like your one customer did, and that almost pays for that entire waveform monitor in that one job that it could have saved you.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a post-production house and you're in the fortunate position where your client trusts you and lets you to do onboard QC, you've really got to be doing this, because although they're sort of handing it over, they're still going to do spot checks on you. And I can tell you, they're going to be doing spot checks using dedicated hardware test and measurement products.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I went to a post house that was using a software tool, and they were talking about it, and this is, well, what about false color? Can you do false color? And they said, yeah, we can do false color, but they negated to actually say that it's a completely offline process. They can take a frame and say false color this frame, and they have to wait for that engine to make a frame that is false colored, and it's not live. And one of the great tools that I love that we've got in the Leader series is the ability to actually false color in HDR the highlight range, so that you can make sure that the material that should be in the SDR region is in the SDR region, and the material that's in the HDR region, that is false colored, so you cut the separation between your SDR range and your specular range absolutely where you want it.
And this becomes even more critical now with so many live productions using HDR.
Yes.
Because lots of those do not have, obviously, complete control over the lighting environment. We've all worked there. You get your cameras out, you set them up. It's a grey, miserable, cloudy day. The teams walk onto the pitch, and that hallelujah moment where the clouds part, the sun comes out, suddenly it's blue sky, and everybody looks at each other going, oh.
Yeah.
By having these false color tools, and we've been very fortunate that our products are used in these live production environments where HDR, where these programs are watched by hundreds of millions of people live.
Yes.
And I speak to the colorists, the live grading HDR supervisors and that, and having false color tools live is just invaluable to them.
Yeah. And in the majority, especially like live sports, where you're talking, you have the field and there is white chalk lines in that field. That white chalk line should be roughly your 90% reflective white. It's beautiful to be able to use a false color and set your SDR to HDR zone so that that chalk line is just barely sparkling in the false color, letting you know that you've got that cut point between your SDR zone and your HDR zone exactly where it belongs.
Yeah.
Regardless of lighting, and you can manipulate that as the sun changes. So not only during lighting does it change your white balance, but it's going to change where your cut zone is between SDR and HDR.
Yeah. And the great thing is that most sporting events have those white pitch markings somewhere in the shot 99% of the time.
All over the place, yes.
So you've got that lovely little check that, you know, the audience don't need to see that you're framing a shot to make sure the camera's set up right. It's just there all the time for you.
Yep.